All right, all right. This is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is Office Hours, CPS Office Hours, where you get to ask me a question and I'll give you an answer. Today I'm joined by Miss G. Miss G is going to be asking a question or two with respect to people that she's talked to who had questions. And you can be on live with us every day at 12:30 or 5 p.m. Pacific time by just contacting Grace at vincentwdavis.com. Our producer will set it up and arrange for you to come on and ask me a question. So, Miss G, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, good. So, what is your question today for our office hours?
My question is if the children were placed in a permanent placement home 11 years ago, and the children right now are 12 and 14, can they, um, do they have a voice to go and to choose to live with their grandmother?
Yes, they do. They have a voice. How strong of a voice they have is going to depend. You know, everything is relative on a scale of 1 to 10. Some cases might be a 10, some cases might be a 9, some cases might be a 5. It just depends on a lot of different factors. But as they get older, they have more and more of a say. In order to make this or accomplish this, the grandmother would probably need to file. Is it a California case? If it is, they'd have to file a 388 petition or something akin to a 388 petition if you're in another state. And the court should grant a hearing and there'll be testimony, especially if the legal guardian who has the children is objecting to the children leaving their home. There might be some psychological, emotional, and financial repercussions for the children leaving the guardian's home. Did that answer your question, Ms. G?
Yes. What if the children are experiencing abuse and now they're speaking up about it to the
Well,
grandmother?
well, that would even further strengthen the grandmother's case if the children are, being victims of or being a victim of alleged abuse in the home of the legal guardian. Not unusual, I hear a lot of stories about kids that are permanently placed in homes that undergo risk of abuse.
Okay. What would you say if I may ask another question or no?
Go ahead.
Okay. What would you say if that person made an anonymous call to report her grandchild's information to her that she's going to hurt herself if she remains in that home, and that grandmother made an anonymous call, but she didn't want to tell CPS she made that call? Is that going to hurt the grandmother? Would they know it's her?
If it was an anonymous call, they wouldn't know it was her, right?
Yeah, but I guess I was told that they record the voice, the anonymous calls, and they can go retract it if needs be to make sure, to say that it was the grandmother that made the call.
Yeah, if the case is in California, it shouldn't make a difference. I mean, sometimes, social workers may tend to be, uh, you know, give some type of retribution, negative retribution for that.
Hmm.
But it shouldn't make a difference. And you know what? If I were the grandparent, I'd probably give my name. I wouldn't even make it anonymous. I'd just say, hey, look, my granddaughter's calling me saying she's having this type of abuse. In a lot of instances, in my mind, that would make it even stronger, a stronger case to investigate for the grandmother.
Okay. Now, does the grandmother need to hire an attorney for the children, or is the case, even though it's been 11 years, how does she need to open the case up with family court, or she has to go through CPS?
If it's a guardianship through CPS or through the juvenile dependency court, she has to go through the juvenile dependency court. And what she needs to do, she needs to file a petition, a 388 petition, to terminate the guardianship and or to get more and more visits with the children overnight, unmonitored, that type of thing. And at that point, the court will appoint the minor's attorney again and the social worker and her attorney will get involved as well, because the social worker will be ordered to do a report and to report back to the court these allegations of abuse.
Okay, and the abuse allegation is done via email to the grandmother, and
Wait a minute, I didn't
that
understand that.
is that via email, meaning that the granddaughter got a hold of her grandma via email,
Oh, I see.
and she emailed her, and when the foster mom found out, she got really mad at her. Then the grandchild started finding other ways via phone to communicate with her grandma. Um,
I don't know all of the facts, but based upon what you're telling me, if I were
mhm,
the grandma, I'd call the hotline,
mhm,
child abuse hotline, and make a report, make an official report. Because a lot of counties in California and states, they're cognizant about these issues of abuse being reported. By
mhm,
law, they have to investigate. And
mhm.
in recent years, counties here in California have been sued more and more for not investigating allegations of disputes. I mean, allegations of abuse.
Okay,
There's a famous case in LA County. I think it was Gabriel Fernandez. It was a young minor who was apparently there were all kinds of reports to the county about this child being abused, and somehow it didn't get really investigated, and then the child ended up dead.
right.
And there was a huge lawsuit against LA County, which I think, I'm pretty sure I heard that they had settled, they quietly settled for multi millions.
Yes, they did, but that didn't bring the child back. So
Right,
it's kind of
right. But
yeah,
because of that, I mean, they're not interested in, having mud on their face and paying out millions of dollars. So
right.
they're stepping up the investigation when these types of claims are being made. And I think in my mind, the grandmother giving her name gives credibility to the complaint of abuse.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Um, do we have time for another question or
You know what? Only for you, Miss G.
my lucky day? I wish it was like that every day. Okay, so one more question. So if a grandmother, um, I'm sorry, a uh, if someone paid a surrogate mom, right, money to adopt children, the child, and that surrogate mom, something happened at the hospital where that surrogate mom lost the children to
Well, hold,
CPS.
hold on a second.
Uh huh.
Someone paid a surrogate mom to have children,
Hmm.
right? That's what you're saying.
Hmm.
Okay. And then something happened at the hospital where CPS came in and took the kids from the surrogate mom.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
but no drugs, nothing like that. It was more like a they didn't want it was a surrogate mom gave birth to a boy and a girl, and somehow CPS wanted those that boy and a girl for some reason, um, and placed those kids in an adoptive home. But the surrogate mom and the father said, "Hey, we paid over $100,000. They have the receipts, they have the contract, all that." But CPS would not let these kids go, and that's in California, this case, and they have been fighting ever since. And my question is, if CPS wants that boy and a girl, they're twins, boy and a girl, and putting them in an adoptive home, why can't they just have those people have the kids if they paid for those kids for a surrogate mother to have those kids?
Oh, they can.
What? But CPS is stopping them in every which way possible.
Okay, so what do I tell people on my shows when the social worker won't do what's right? What are you supposed to do?
Oh, you have to file a motion? I don't know what you're saying.
Miss G, when
Yes.
the social worker doesn't do what you think is right, what you have to do is get an attorney and go see the judge.
Yeah, that part I know. Yeah. she is gonna hire us. She's hiring. She's in the process of hiring us right now. But I guess I wanted her to understand that if your case is that sensitive and they want to adopt these kids, the longer you wait, the worse it's going to be.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Here's something that happens many, many times, and I just saw this happen on another case.
Mhm.
CPS cases are very unique,
Right.
and people that have been involved in our legal system, either in a divorce or personal injury case or a probate case, something like that, criminal case, there's this sense that there is time to figure things out and let things play out.
Mhm.
And having practiced in other areas, that's true. It's not true in CPS cases. What happens is there are strict timelines that pass, maybe every month, maybe every, 6 weeks, every 2 months.
Mhm.
Okay, strict timelines when things happen. And here's the unfortunate part. Once a timeline passes, I would say there's a 90% chance that you cannot reverse that. So people thinking, well, I can wait and see how this plays out. The judges are making certain findings and orders about that case.
Mhm.
And if you were waiting for the judge to do something or waiting for the social worker to do something, you're basically being led down a path, of false security. The big example that I see in this, and this happens a lot, at the beginning of the case, grandma calls and says, "Hey, I'm over in Nevada and I want my grandkids in California." The social worker says, "Oh, okay, just hold tight, we'll get to you." Weeks go by, grandma calls again. "Oh, yeah, grandma, we're looking into it. Just be patient." Couple more months goes by, grandma calls again. "I haven't heard anything. How come my grandkids haven't been placed with me?" "Oh, grandma, don't worry, we're taking care of that." Months go by, months go by, and all of a sudden, grandma finds out that foster parents are about to adopt the grandchildren.
Yeah.
Grandma calls and says to the social worker, "What happened? I thought you were planning on putting the kids with me." And social worker says, "Well, we changed our mind." Grandma calls me up and says, you know, um, "This is what's happening." And I say, "Well, why didn't you call me early on?"
Mhm.
"Well, the social worker said she was going to do the right thing and give me the kids."
Mhm.
I go to court. First thing the judge says, "Well, why didn't grandma come forward and get the kids and make this motion earlier, months ago?" And grandma says, "Well, social worker told me just to wait."
Mhm.
Social worker says, "Well, no, I didn't actually say that," right? So it's like, when they come to your house and they go and they steal that $10 million out of your closet, you're just going to wait around? What you going to do? You're going to call Johnny Cochran, if he were alive, to go get that $10 million.
Yep.
I don't know why people don't call an attorney to get these relative kids out of foster care. And I think it's because they really believe the social workers. You know, they believe that their government, they won't lie to them. And it,
Well.
and it happens all the time. All the time. We picked up a case recently where that almost that exact scenario, and I've seen it hundreds of times over my career, is happening again.
Mhm.
And I asked the grandparent, I said, "Well, why didn't you call me 12 months ago?" "Well, the social worker said she was going to place the kid with me."
Mhm.
And it turns out the social worker wrote in her notes, "I'm considering grandfather and grandmother." Social worker never said, "I'm going to place the kid with you."
That part. Yep.
And so, in their mind, grandma and grandpa thought, well, considering meant I'm going to get the kids because I should get the kids, right? I'm
Mm,
I'm I'm in a case right now that I have to argue. I'm representing the father. Another very fine attorney is representing the mother.
mhm,
We're trying to place a kid in foster care here in LA in a home of a maternal uncle in Florida.
mhm,
The county's the county's position has been quiet.
mhm,
They don't want to do it. I get that feeling because they're not arguing for it.
mhm.
But the minor's attorney has taken the position that the kid shouldn't be sent to Florida with the uncle. Turns out, maternal uncle is, he's a medical doctor.
Mm.
He's an accomplished, very well known in the community. He can afford it. He's a good standing. And do you know that this kid is in foster care and that the minor's own attorney is arguing against it?
Right. But you have to tell the people why, though, because they're going to lose the funding for that county.
Well, that's the only thing that I can think of
Hmm.
because the federal funding follows the minor, doesn't stay necessarily in the case here in LA County. Case could
Exactly.
be open here in LA County, but then most of the money, federal funding, is going to go with the kid who's in Florida, being supervised by Florida social workers.
That's right.
They got to get paid. Federal government isn't going to pay double. They're just going to allocate and prorate the money, mainly going to the child and the services the child is receiving in Florida. So they don't want, and the other thing is, if the kid goes to Florida, how are we going to supervise the kid? No social worker here is going to be able to see the kid. No, the minor's attorney won't be able to see the kid, right?
Hmm.
Because the kid is being supervised by the state of Florida. Now, what they always come up with is, oh, the parents won't be able to visit. Well, in this case, the mother and father, want the kid to go to Florida because they see, after several months, they finally see that the foster care placement is not a good place. And both the mother and father have told me that they suspect, inappropriate things happening in that foster care placement.
Hmm.
Now they're really scared about it.
Right.
You know, they know their daughter. They know things that have been said, how they've been said,
Right.
and they just have a bad feeling. And besides, the uncle, the kid's supposed to be placed with an uncle through what's called the interstate compact.
Right.
And we're having a big argument about that now, about whether that uncle should be able to get placement. So I say this to say, told that story to say this. If you think that just because you're a relative, you should get the kid,
Hmm.
there are many forces that will be fighting against that.
Right.
And you think to yourself, well, how could they possibly do it? Well, until you go through all these different scenarios, everybody has their own agenda in life, and everybody has their own agenda in these cases. So beware. Go to court early. Get that attorney early.
But
I tell that to people, and they think, he just wants the business. And then they call me back 12 months later. Oh my God, Mr. Davis, you won't believe what happened. Oh,
hmm
yes, I will. And I
yep.
think I don't say this because I hate to say that I told you so, but I
Yep.
think that in my mind. Well, that's what I told you. Why are you shocked that your government has screwed you, has stabbed you in the back? A
Right.
lot of people, I should do a show on this or a video on this, Miss G. And, I know you're very passionate about these cases.
Hmm.
A lot of people that I come in contact with make decisions on an emotional level. 9 out of 10 times when you do that, you're going to risk crashing and burning.
It's actually 10 out of 10.
You have to make
Hmm.
decisions based upon the law, the facts, and um, your attorney's experience. I'll tell you a funny story. Um, I have been a lawyer 38 years. This is my
Mhm.
38th year. I've been doing these cases about 35 years.
Mhm.
And a client, this was some time ago, a client kept getting involved in the strategy. And I kept telling the client, look, please relax, don't make emotions. Don't let your emotions carry you through. And the bad part about it was, as we won more and more little by little,
Mhm.
the client became more powerful in their thoughts about what could be done,
Mhm.
not listening to my advice about limitations of the case and of the law and just of the political nature of the case and the personalities of the people involved.
Mhm.
Right. I knew the personalities of the people involved, the other attorneys,
Mhm.
perhaps the judge from doing many cases in front of the judge. The client ended up firing me
Mhm.
because
I know
I wouldn't go along with the client's strategy.
that part.
The client ended up hiring a lawyer who had about 5 or 6 years experience in CPS cases.
Mhm.
I think the lawyer, she was, a much more experienced attorney, but not in CPS cases. And they ended up
Mhm.
crashing and burning. And I say that to say you got to listen to someone's experiences,
Mhm.
someone's experience in the area. I mean, people come to me because they think I'm an expert. I am an expert,
Yep.
but if you hire me and pay me, that doesn't mean I'm going to go along with everything you say.
Exactly.
So, take into consideration your lawyer's advice. Not just me, but any lawyer that you have that's experienced in these matters.
No, no, no. Not any lawyer. I know you're very kind when you talk about other attorneys, God, and that's why, you're good at what you do because you really don't judge anyone when it comes to, other attorneys. However, I other attorneys don't give the same advice as you. I spoke to someone today, in fact, and she spoke to four different attorneys, and they all told her that she can escape the country doing a CPS investigation. She can leave. She can leave to another state, or she can go to another country, take the kids with her. And that was their advice. And I said I can't agree with that. I said that's not something Attorney David would say. I had her, book a consultation with you. Her consultation appointment is on Tuesday. However, she believed all of them. So I asked her, I said, were they CPS defense attorneys? She said, no, they were family law attorneys. I said, well, if they're not CPS defense attorneys, they're not going to give you the right advice. They're literally telling you to run away. And then I tried to explain the state will come after you. They will find you. Am I right? Or I mean, that's
Yeah,
what you taught me.
you're generally right. I mean,
Okay.
there are situations
Mm-hmm.
and then there are situations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you don't have to tell me now, but I'd have to know all the facts. And depending on the facts, and everybody's case is different. I tell that to a lot of people, and they're like, "Yeah, whatever," but
Yep.
it is different. Who's the social worker on the case? What county is this? Who's the judge? What's the evidence? What's the allegations against you? All of
Mhm.
those things have to be considered.
Yep.
They must be considered.
But you mentioned something earlier, if I may interrupt, about the fact that you have to know the people in your case. The judge in your case, you have the personality of the people involved in your case. That's very strong statement right there, because that shows that is part of your strategy. I tell people all the time when I go to court with you, um, oftentimes people say you didn't say much, Mr. Davis, but then towards the end, you begin to show the real fight, but you're kind of like, the strategy is knowing when to
Right.
attack. That's
That's all.
why,
That's all experience. You
right.
know, I remember one time. This has happened decades ago. Um, I was on a case with another attorney,
Mm-hmm,
and the other attorney, very aggressive, very good, but very aggressive lawyer.
mm-hmm,
And the client complained to me that, hey, you weren't aggressive as lawyer so and so.
mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah. And I said, what did you want me to do? Jump up on the table and stomp my feet? And the client said, yeah, that's what I wanted to see. I said, well, let me ask you something. Did we get everything we wanted? And the client thought about it and said, yeah, you did. I said, that's because I didn't get up on the table and stomp my feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, persuading a judge or a jury inside a courtroom is not what you think. Okay? It's just not what you think. And you hired me because you thought I was an expert. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
I am an expert. So let's do what I suggest. And if you don't want to do what I suggest, it's okay. Just don't come to me after and say, hey, Vince, why did we lose?
Don't blame it on you. I
Right.
tell them that. Yep. I get very offended when they do that because I've witnessed with my own eyes what you go through in court when, the times I go with you to court. And oftentimes I hear clients saying, you work for me, you do it as I want you to do it. And you're trying to reason with them to the point when we were in India over a year ago, one of the clients was talking to you so poorly in the hallway. And someone else that was sitting down came up to her and she said, how dare you talk to Mr. Davis like this? I've been trying to hire this man for so long and I can't afford him. You should be happy he's here with you. Listen to what he has to say. And our client looked at her and she said, the B word, sit down, get out of my face, something like that. And I remember you were so embarrassed that day. And I was just about to open my mouth and you just went like this to me.
Yeah.
Like,
You know,
go over there. But I know who I'm talking about. But
I do know.
yeah, and
That was an extreme case. I mean, these are emotional cases.
Mhm,
Everybody, this is my kid. We do what I say. And sometimes you let your emotions, which brings us back around to what we were started.
emotions.
Emotions.
Mhm.
You got to
But
control
she
those
hired,
emotions.
but you were number 11th attorney, remember? They were even laughing about it in court. You were number 11th. She hired 11 attorneys and they couldn't get the job done. And you were so close and she had to do it her way to be what? Vindicated.
Right.
All she wanted is vindication. And you kept telling her, please, let's not focus on that. And that part she couldn't understand. But
Right.
you were almost there getting her kids. You made an agreement. You made it happen. And then you told her, all I want you to do is be quiet. Do not attack the judge. You know who I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Emotions. Hmm.
it's interesting how people react
Hmm.
because this is their family. I get it. It's
I
their
know.
child. I get it. But they're swimming in shark infested waters
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
don't have any shark repellent. They're not using the shark cage. And when they get eaten up alive, they just say, well, they blame it on somebody else.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And she blamed it on you. That's what the point I'm trying to make. Like you said earlier, you're
it,
letting emotion run
it's always
take
the
over you.
attorney's. It's always the attorney's fault.
Yeah.
Always. So
Right.
I've been doing this 38th year. It's always my fault.
I do have another question, if I may.
Got to go, Miss G. It's the end of
But,
the office hours.
okay, but
We've taken a 10-minute office hour and we're going on minute 30.
okay,
What you can do is I'll let Miss Grace bring you on tomorrow, either at 10:30 or 12:30 or 5:30. Okay,
okay,
but I do have to go.
okay,
All right. If anybody wants to come on and join us for CPS office hours, you email Grace at vincentwdavis.com, or you call Grace at 888 888 All righty. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye bye.
bye bye.